Welcome to day 27. I am not Pastor Justin. Hey, have you ever found yourself at a spot where they're charging you way more for goods than what they normally would be, and you don't have any choice but to buy those? I'm thinking of like theme parks and big venues where you're not allowed to bring your own food and beverages in. My daughter and I were recently at a concert, and I knew I couldn't bring my water bottle with me. And I knew that was part of the deal, but it still was painful as I was standing in line at the concession stand just to buy a bottle of water for me and a bottle of water for her. $5 a piece they wanted. I couldn't believe it. I knew it was going to happen, and I still had a hard time believing how much that they would charge me for a bottle of water. $10, I could buy so much bottled water at one of the club stores for that. It seems like sometimes in those moments we're taken advantage of. And that's kind of the scene that we find in Mark 11. Jewish men were required to make a pilgrimage every year to Jerusalem to one of the major festivals. And Passover week was one of those big festivals. And so during Passover week, in the time of Jesus, Jerusalem's population would swell. Normally the population of Jerusalem at this time would have been somewhere between 20 and 30,000 people. And during Passover week, scholars estimate that it swelled from somewhere between 100,000 to 300,000 people in Jerusalem for that week. And so during Passover, these people would travel to Jerusalem from all over. And it was unrealistic or sometimes even impossible for them to try to bring the sacrifice animals that they were trying to offer to God as a sacrifice. And so what you had happen is vendors would set up and they would sell animals there. On top of that, there was also a temple tax that Rome was tossing out there, and so people didn't have the right currency for paying that temple tax, and so there were people that would set up to exchange currency for you. And of course, both the people that are selling the animals and the people that are doing the exchange, the currency exchange, they're charging exorbitant rates, taking advantage of people who didn't have a whole lot of other options. Vendors would set up, and what was the most convenient place to set up for them? Right there in the temple. Right? And so what better spot to set up than right in the temple courts? And so Jesus enters and he sees this happening. He notices all the people being taken advantage of and the fact that it's right there on what would be considered holy ground. And Jesus gets mad. In all four gospel accounts, we see Jesus' reaction to this scene. But Mark 11, it talks specifically about the fact that Jesus went in and started to drive out the people that were selling and buying in the temple. And he turned over the tables that had been set up for these vendors. And he wouldn't allow people to bring goods through the temple court. And John even included the fact in his account that Jesus had gone out and made a whip and was using a whip to help drive out the people and the animals and everything. And he went on record and said, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a den of robbers." Think about what this scene must have looked like. There's a lot happening here, and this is a big area, a big crowded area. It must have taken some time. Think about what that must have looked like to those who were standing around. Jesus probably, to many people, looked like he had lost his mind. Everyone else was okay with what the setup was at this point. Why wasn't Jesus? Perhaps this is part of the reason that there were so many that had been yelling Hosanna just the day before, and a couple days later they ended up yelling Crucify him. It can be easy to get caught up in what the crowd is doing. People are willing to go along with all kinds of things. They were even willing to put up with the circus scene that was happening in the temple courts. And Jesus took worship of God so seriously that he was willing to upset the status quo. Now, are we the kind of people who are willing to just go along with the crowd, whatever the crowd has got going on? Or are we the kind of people who take our worship of God so seriously that we don't care if we upset the status quo? Think about that.